Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the 22 Trends Making Headlines Masterclass. Please introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you're joining us from. Some quick logistics, feel free to select either gallery or speaker view, and please keep yourself on mute when you're not speaking. I will mute everyone shortly. Let's do it now. Mute all. Yes. I now have the pleasure to introduce you to the Chief Creative Officer and Executive Director of the Global Wellness Summit, Nancy Davis. Good morning, Nancy. Over to you.
Thank you, Jessie, and welcome everyone to the Wellness Masterclass Exploring Trends Making Headlines. Fortunately for us, many of those are the trends we identified in 2022 in our Global Wellness Trends Report, which has been updated to include a new preface and the media response to each trend, including links to top articles and a snapshot of the coverage. We produce this mid-year report as a way to check in on the trends landscape in general and to keep our eyes on what's happening now and what's next. Clearly, this is of interest as we have over 900 people from 91 countries registered for this call. Don't be
Nancy, you're muted.
I muted you. I'm so sorry. I clicked mute all because so many people are still joining us. I'm so sorry.
Okay, Jessie. I could not be more excited about the illustrious group of journalists, trend spotters, and leaders in the industry here with us today to unpack all of this. We're also going to learn what they have been seeing and hearing and get a few predictions about the future. And although I've become known for my heartfelt introductions, I'm going to err on the side of brevity today to give our amazing guests more time. After all, you signed up to hear from them. I'm joined, of course, by my dear colleague and friend, Susie Ellis, Chair and CEO of both the Global Wellness Summit and Global Wellness Institute. Susie is wearing her Trends author hat today, or perhaps her VR headset, as she updates us on what's happening in the metaverse since she wrote that trend. All of our guests today are looking at the future. And before I introduce them, I want to thank Tammy Payhill, VP of Spa and Wellness, Carillon Miami Wellness Resort, for being the sponsor of this Wellness Masterclass. Tammy is a longtime friend and supporter of the Global Wellness Summit and someone who is always looking to the future. In fact, the mid-year update on Tammy is that she is also now the Chief Wellness Officer for Alchemy Wellness Resorts, a new venture she is leading along with her colleagues Roxana Medina, who I think may be on the call, and Patrick Fernandez. Tammy, please unmute yourself, take a moment and update us on what's trending in your life. And you know, when I say a moment, I mean it.
Yes, I know you mean it, Nancy. Just to, be very brief, Alchemy has been developed because here at the Carillon, we had so many calls, people asking for help with wellness and how to add wellness and, really be able to offer a variety of different wellness activations. And so with that, that's how Alchemy became. So we are, we have a lot of expertise, but we are a management and consulting company for wellness and travel.
Tammy, thank you so much. And I know we'll be seeing you at the summit and in many places, and always thank you for your support.
Thank you.
At the center of the conversation today is the one and only Beth Mcgrardy, VP for Research and Forecasting at the Global Wellness Summit and Institute. I've introduced Beth many times before. I've described her as our resident brain trust and an archaeologist unearthing health and wellness trends. You should know that Beth is really the reason our other guests are here today, because when Beth is speaking, offering her insights, her legendary intelligence, and acerbic wit, everyone listens, including the esteemed group gathered for this call. That group includes Kathy Feliciano-Chan, founder and managing director of Catch On, a Finn Partners company, and an expert on travel, tourism, and so much more with a specialty in the Asian markets. Kathy is also wickedly funny and with a voice that sounds like velvet. Listen up. Wellness pioneer Anna Bjerstrom is responsible for developing Six Senses as a leading wellness brand. She is an extraordinary Renaissance woman and the definition of walking the walk. Before Anna introduces a new wellness concept or practice into a Six Senses destination, she immerses herself in that practice, along the way becoming a shaman, for instance. We are honored to have both Kathy and Anna serve on the GWS Advisory Board. It takes a village to put together the Global Wellness Trends Report, and some of the village people are here today. This is where I should cue the music. The New York Times travel columnist and freelance writer Elaine Glusak, who was named Travel Journalist of the Year in 2019. Freelance journalist Jamie Miller, a regular Men's Health contributor covering wellness, style, fitness, and culture, and freelance journalist featured in publications such as the New York Times and Los Angeles Times, Rena Raphael, author of The Gospel of Wellness, a book coming out this September. Welcome all, and thank you for being here today and for all you do collaborating with us. I'll be moderating, and I know you will use the chat, share your thoughts and some questions. We'll try to get to them if there is time. Speaking of time, it's 7 a.m. in California, and Beth is a notorious night owl. So a special thanks to this special woman, a brilliant thinker, elegant writer, witty commentator on life, and a kind and generous soul, the one and only and fully caffeinated Beth Mcgrardy. Please unmute Beth. Hi, Beth.
Hi there. Okay, I didn't realize I had to unmute. Thank you, Nancy. That was absurdly kind.
Beth, you've been identifying and writing about wellness trends for almost 2 decades. So this masterclass and this mid-year report is a kind of check-in on how we did with our 2022 predictions. What grade would you give us and why?
I think that the trends this year, I think they represent something I've been talking about with Rena a lot, which is a sort of a vibe shift that is happening in wellness. So, they cover everything from soil health to medical tech, new technologies helping women's health, gather more evidence for women's health conditions. They're more serious. I would say they're a little less trendy trends. There's, dealing with male body image issues for once, senior living being rewritten. So I feel like the trends feel like the wellness market now, in that it's a little slower, a little less clickbaity, a little less ephemeral. There's a sense that the wellness consumer is shifting before our eyes right now, and that consumer is a little more reflective, less selfish, a thinker as much of a believer, a seeker in evidence, comfortable with imperfection, radically focused on mental and emotional health. So I feel like that the trends represent and sort of, we're a little prescient in that shift that's happening right now for us.
So that's the new consumer. I know in your preface to this new report, to the updated report, you talk about the new wellness consumer. So that's really like a formed new person in the wellness landscape for what you're seeing.
It's something Karina and I have been having just, casual couch conversations about this, but there's some major shifts. We've been spending 2 years speculating. What's the post-pandemic wellness market and consumer going to look like? Now, as things have opened up, we're starting to see some signs of that person. There's a whole bunch of different aspects to that person. And I know we don't have a lot of time, which it's in the introduction, but it's everything from consumers being tired of wellness as elitist hyper-consumerism, less selfish care, more planetary and other person care, a really vocal rejection of wellness as about the perfect looks and lifestyle, and a kind of trashing of toxic body image, beauty and happiness pressures, people demanding more evidence, wanting to know a little bit more why to embrace wellness approaches, less magical thinking, healthcare and wellness having a defrosted relationship. We're starting to have a defrosted relationship. So, there's a lot of key pillars that you sort of see taking shape. It's very fascinating the last 6 months to watch, this stuff start to unfold.
Beth, thank you. And Rena, I'm going to come to you now, and please, Beth, stay unmuted, so feel free to jump in and comment. First, congratulations, Rena, on your book, The Gospel of Wellness, which I assume is a biography of Beth?
I mean, it is partially a memoir of my conversations with Beth, and Beth is right. We are big nerds who will just spend 3 hours on the phone on a Tuesday, just being like, so what's next? In fact, some of our conversations just, if you go, the LA Times just published a feature this morning that I wrote that is based on how the wellness industry is changing. And like Beth said, it is a pushback against this sort of elitist hyper-consumerism, ridiculous cure-all claims. So if you'd like to see Beth and I's conversation in print, go to the LA Times today.
Well, we'll send that link with the follow-up to the article.
Yeah, but yeah, I am hearing, I don't know if you're asking me specifically about.
Yeah, I want to know what you're, sort of what you're so connected to the world and the consumer world of wellness. What are you seeing, what's new, and what about this new consumer?
Yeah, I would say two things. I think that as Beth sort of referenced, there are people coming out of the pandemic. I think it made people really reflect on what health means, what their health habits are, how they're spending their money. And just also, there was so much talk within the media about misinformation that I think people really reflected on what their sources are and where they're getting their health information. So that's number one. There's also, I would say, a big influence of Gen Z on this industry in the sense that they're really rebelling against this sort of hustle culture, work hard, productivity mandate that was within wellness that is a little bit more associated with the girl boss millennial, I would say, generation. So they don't think you have to beat yourself up workouts. They don't want to obsess over ingredients. If they want to have some goldfish crackers, they're just going to have them and not flip out. So there's a little bit of a calming down because they were raised, especially the older, I would say Gen Zers were raised by practical Gen X parents, and they're just not buying this stuff at all. So you're seeing a little bit of an industry saying, if we want to get these consumers, we're not going to terrify them with, let's say, clean beauty claims. We're not going to over obsess about an ingredient. They care about what tastes good. They want to feel good. It's a more, I think it's believed, I believe it's called a soft life approach. It's very big on TikTok right now. If you put it in, it's about people taking a more relaxed, more common sense approach to wellness. And there's millions of views and videos of people who are just saying, enough is enough. What's science-based? What can I really do that helps me feel good? And how do I get rid of the sort of goop ridiculousness?
So is this just a sort of natural pendulum swing from extreme to Yeah.
And I describe it as sort of, the overly glossy, overproduced rock of the 80s and 90s gave way to the grunge era, where it's a little bit more simplistic, a little bit more stripped down. How do we get back to the pillars of wellness, which is really what your institute is all about? What is real wellness versus sort of the hyper consumerist, extra that pulls you in?
Thank you, Rena. Is Jamie, are you on the call? Jamie Miller? I can't see from my screen. If you are, please unmute.
Yes, I have unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Jamie. Welcome. Thank you. And how's your wife doing?
She's very well. She's increasingly grumpy. She's very pregnant. She's not just grumpy for, because she's married to me. She's very pregnant and very hot, and things are very difficult. And the baby is due on Sunday. So
okay, well, good luck, and we won't keep you just in case. But Jamie, you wrote a fascinating trend on the report called "Toxic Muscularity Comes Clean." Maybe you could give us a little update on this trend and what you're seeing kind of mid-year as this has unfolded.
Yeah, well, it's been very gratifying to see actually a number of big publications have published pieces on this trend, which obviously I take full and sole credit for. But it is great to see that more places are publicizing it, because I think it's something that's just not talked about enough. I actually wrote a piece for Vice UK a couple of weeks ago, which was centered around a guy who was on a show called Love Island. I don't know if you guys have that in the States. I don't recommend watching it, but it's a show that's really associated with promoting an unrealistic body image for men and women. But he was a contestant in the 2016 series, and then he went on to become a fitness influencer and actually started using steroids. and had to have a breast reduction operation as a result of his steroid use.
Gosh.
He was quite repentant about it, really, but he was talking just about how prevalent the use of these drugs are amongst young guys. He's from Wales, and where he's from, he says it's absolutely rife. So yeah, I think it's a really important issue that needs to be talked about more.
Jamie, can you tell us, just explain a little bit about toxic muscularity?
Yeah, so I mean, hopefully you can see what I did there with the pun on muscularity and masculinity, but that's really deliberate because it's toxic in a literal sense and a figurative sense. It's toxic in the sense that a lot of men and young boys are taking steroids and other performance enhancing and image and enhancing drugs, which are then having some very serious side effects, including a rise in male breast reduction operations, but also issues like heart issues, problems with other organs. But also it's figuratively toxic, that we're being exposed to these unrealistic body image ideals in the same way that women and girls have been exposed to very thin models and
right.
Images that have been doctored. But men and boys are bombarded by these hugely muscular, ripped physiques, most of which are not possible without the use of performance-enhancing substances, and it creates this vicious cycle where people are seeing these physiques, thinking, "Why don't I look like that? There must be something wrong with me. I'm not enough of a man. I need to go to the gym. I train in the gym for a while. I'm not seeing these results. I need something that's going to take me to that level." And then it's creating this sort of snowball effect.
Yeah, it's catching the men have caught up with the body image issues for women. Beth, I know this trend was very interesting, particularly interesting to you. Do you want to make a comment before we move on to Elaine?
I just think it's stunning how delayed this sort of just percolating movement that Jamie's been very crucial in jumpstarting is. I mean, it's kind of astounding how far people have come with female body issues, and yet every time I open up a fitness ad, look at a fitness ad or look at any image of a man, it's a shredded, young, Thor character. So I think it always makes me think when I read Jamie's trend that women may be underserved in healthcare, but men are often very underserved in wellness. So
interesting. That's an interesting distinction. And we certainly know women are underserved in healthcare. Okay, Jamie, thank you so much. And don't go anywhere. Elaine Glusak, if you're on this call, will you unmute and say hi so I know you're there?
Elaine's I sent her the link 3 times. She seems to not be getting it, and I don't know why. And I'm being resent.
We will come back and find Elaine when she joins. Kathy Chan, you have a very unique perspective as it relates to travel. What are some of the headwinds getting in the way of travel's full recovery? And then on a more positive note, what are the emerging hotspots for wellness tourism?
So, hi, everyone. If we were to look at what the airports look like over this summer, travel is definitely back, but we do have a lot of headwinds our way. I think there's still a tremendous amount of uncertainty. The ongoing kind of Ukraine war, the geopolitical tensions here in Asia, ongoing travel restrictions in some countries. So I think that's something that we need to keep in mind. So travel is far from being safe and seamless. And I think the reality there is it's also pointing to a lot of cracks in the system. We obviously airports are understaffed. Planes are grounded because they don't have enough staff to fly it, which is pointing to another kind of critical issue that will take time to fix. And that is being able to recruit more people into this industry, whether it's hospitality or travel. We are continuing to suffer a drain. And I think that it will call for a major shift, I think, in thinking in terms of how to win more people into this industry. The other thing that I'm concerned and I'm watching very closely is obviously tourism tax. And while it's widely practiced, mostly in Europe, where you're taxed for overnight stays and accommodations, but the moment it gets to the point that you're being taxed at $200 US per night in places like Bhutan, points to a movement, a trend that is quite concerning, because then what you're seeing is that increasingly destinations are being positioned truly for a certain market segment, whether that's very affluent or not. And so we talk about, anti-elitism earlier, but it's really coming back in travel. I mean, if we are saying, many industry experts are saying that we're entering the platinum age of travel, right, of modern travel. But really what that's showing is a counter movement to the golden age of travel, where, everything was made available to everyone. Roads were built, we were on the road, and so on and so forth. But now what's happening is that there's segmentation going on. So there are people who will be able to afford certain destinations, and there are people who will not be able to afford it. And we're also seeing that in terms of air travel, whereby, many of these private jets had record years. And they couldn't be bothered going through commercial flights. They took private jets to bring their pets with them and what have you. So they've had record year. And the fourth kind of, I think I say headwinds, is something that we're watching very closely, obviously, is going to be the return of the Chinese outbound market. Whether we admit to it or not, the long-term viability and recovery of travel, international travel, depends heavily still on the outbound Chinese market. So that's something that we're watching very closely.
Kathy, when are you thinking that's going to open up again?
Probably next year, likely next year. I'm trying to stay optimistic, but we're looking at Q1, Q2 of next year. And did you mention hotspots as well?
Yeah, hotspots for wellness tourism. What are you seeing there?
So in terms, looking at it purely from the perspective of scale of investment, the Middle East. I mean, when you look at what's being poured to develop regions, areas, and the amount of investment poured in to make sure that these are state of the art in terms of sustainability, regeneration, and what have you, it is truly, staggering when you look at the investment across Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar. And it's not just from a wellness product perspective, but also the accompanying medical tourism piece, right? The hospitals that are being built there. In my region, I'm excited about markets like Japan. I mean, at government level, Japan is definitely taking their tourism dollars very, very seriously. We have thousands of ryokans, which are basically these country inns that are built around nature and, trumpeting onsens and kaiseki, culinary traditions of seasonal ingredients, which really, if you think about it, is really ticks all the box for wellness. These things are being revitalized by private equity firms. So we are going to have a lot of these things that for a long time have been very elusive to international travelers, now going to be more accessible. So I'm really excited about that. And then obviously markets that we call our wellness markets 1.0 or 2.0, the ones that we have loved, like Thailand or Bali. I think that they're really also ramping up their development because they do want to be remembered. They don't want people to forget that wellness is really at the heart of their kind of tourism initiatives. And Vietnam. So a lot going on in my region.
Yes. Keeps you busy, and we keep you up at night. So
you keep me up. Exactly.
Thank you for that. Beth, do you want to comment on wellness tourism for a minute before we move to Anna?
Only that everything I hear, either in conversations, it's just doing really well.
Any region in particular? And Kathy's talking about Asia in that region. Anything you've heard at other places?
I think, it's just one thing that's interesting is, and it's something that Elaine mentions, is, people have stuck closer to home for so long. You're seeing more domestic, but you're seeing an interesting kind of shift towards what you could call an indigenous wellness in travel. Yeah. I mean, this takes both forms as indigenous people taking over lands and new experiences, as well as a kind of, wellness has been under the gun for a kind of mass cultural appropriation. People like Zulal, doing Islamic medicine in the Middle East. So yep. I think that that's an interesting, more authentic, more a kind of indigenous return instead of this sort of smorgasbord of, Balinese, in South America, etc. So,
Susie, I'm going to ask you to just jump in here for a minute. because you've done so much traveling and you have been speaking at different conferences in different parts of the world and really sort of seeing this wellness tourism come to life in a renewed sense. And I wonder if you just comment on that for a minute.
Sure. Well, one of the things we've seen here at the Global Wellness Summit, Global Wellness Institute, is a lot more incoming interest from governments. And just like some of the people who've already spoken have said, governments, what's happened is, consumers are interested in wellness. Medical is now much more interested than before. Businesses with, employee wellness, but governments are also finding that they need to start talking and doing something about wellness. And so they're reaching out, and wellness tourism is part of the catalyst because that brings in a lot of money, especially for some of the smaller countries that might not have, a lot of other, manufacturing. So wellness tourism is a piece of it. But when I speak, and Indonesia was one, Thailand was another, some of the Middle East countries, I would say almost every government is looking at wellness tourism. And, we launched the Geography of Wellness on our website really, a few months ago in reaction to that, because the governments, countries want to, or regions even, want to showcase their authentic, what they're doing, what's unique to them, and why come there. And I love that because it's a nod to everyone's, unique heritage and, what we can learn from so many different countries. And it's a reason for people to keep traveling. I mean, you want to go to Bali and have a Balinese massage, but you might want to go to the Middle East and learn about Islamic medicine. So I think it's really exciting, and I just see it really ramping up.
Thank you, Susie. Yeah, I think everybody's, there's a lot of nodding heads in agreement with you, and I think people are seeing this all over the world. Anna, you're there in your, what looks like your spaceship. I've always thought of you as someone who just doesn't, not just looks into a crystal ball, but maybe actually made the ball. You've really led innovation in this industry. What are you seeing, and what is a Six Senses consumer looking for now? And how is that different now?
I think, something that everyone is speaking about right now is longevity. How do we live longer, but we don't want to live sicker longer. We want to live healthier longer. So what can you do? And of course, if you don't do the basics, such as sleep, movement, nutrition, water, etc., which is kind of boring for lots of people, are looking for the next kind of magic pill, if it is. And we see a lot of Emperor's New Clothes coming everywhere. So it is quite interesting. We see a lot of tech happening, and we're venturing into tech as well, often referred to as biohacking. And there are some that are very like cryotherapy or compression boots or red light, infrared, etc., PEMF, pulse electromagnetic fields. They are very researched, and there is science behind them. And then we have others that are under more discussion, but one is hopeful on, such as we're seeing a complete boom of hyperbaric chambers right now across not only the US and Israel, but around the world. And we're bringing some in as well at Six Senses. And the science is not really there, but there are some signs in one paper. I know the speaker's coming to the Global Wellness Summit in Tel Aviv, very exciting. And there are
yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, so there are research being done to trying to see that hyperbaric not only is good for wound healing and brain damage, but also for longevity. So we're seeing supplements, nootropics, equipment, various medical intervention as well. And I just read a very interesting study today about how actually calorie restriction together with fasting increase lifespan in mice as much as 35%, which is that's astonishing. And so, but it depends on what time of day you're actually eating, so you don't binge eat at night. But anyway, so we're seeing longevity. That's something that we are seeing. We're also seeing the incredible interest of wellness in our resorts. and from our owners as well. And everyone wants to know, because they're seeing that this is their insurance for the future, is that they need to be well. They need to have a good immune system. We also know that science have seen that if we want to pinpoint one system in the body that will help you live longer, it is the immune system. That's what you focus on with things such as exosomes, plasma, and all those things that are also coming as more medical interventions. We're bringing in a lot more medical into Six Senses. So we're marrying and defrosting that. So doing diagnosis, but with preventative interventions on how you not get sick and how you live longer or just be healthier in general. So, and of course, what's interesting is our hotels membership is something that we're seeing. We're also launching that next year at our Six Senses place. And but many else people are, and there was a question about social wellness. Membership clubs, having a belonging. We see membership and retreats when it comes to social wellness are starting to boom. We have started with a lot of retreats, festivals, etc., because people are lonely, and we all know what loneliness does to our health and wellness, and especially mentally. So we see membership clubs and retreats becoming a very big thing in the future, where people want to come together, meet like-minded people in a safe environment where you're not too vulnerable to find a purpose and a belonging that many has not had for several years now.
I think the sense of community, the need for community, that has been something that's been like a through line all year. I'm sure it is, accelerated post-pandemic, post-lockdown, I should say. We're not out of a pandemic, but post-lockdown, people really have realized, I think, the necessity of that and the impact on their health. Anna, how do you find what's new? How do you discover the things and bring them to market at Six Senses the way that you do so consistently? Will you share a sort of secret sauce way that you do this?
I'm a nerd. So just like some others here, and also we have some advisors that are absolutely amazing we have scientists, we have sleep like Michael Bruce, we have Mark Hyman, all of those that I have the pleasure of speaking to regularly and kind of asking, what do you do? We have at Six Senses, we have a talk show called Friends of Six Senses, where we have all these people that comes in and shares what's happening. So I just read a lot, love reading science paper, have scientists and other advocates like Alberto Violdo, who's amazing, as well, just saying, this is new, this is what's happening, have you looked at this? And then I nerd into the science of it and read about it. And sometimes there is no science, but you still test it and see, because something just makes sense.
And you find that your guests of Six Senses are open to all of this? Do they ask for certain things? Do they come to Six Senses for this? Because I know you have extraordinary destinations that are just, beautiful and wonderful, but do they come to you now for this more than anything? These kinds of special experiences?
We're seeing the rise of two consumers. There's one that wants to go on wellness programs or retreats. So we are seeing a rise in there. And also our wellness screening that we have, where we test biomarkers non-invasively in our locations. So we're able to see, people want to know, what am I actually scientifically, so to speak, in my wellness status? But then we're also seeing that, and we mentioned it the other week as well, recovery. People they're tired, they're brain tired, they're tired in so many ways. So they don't want to go on a energy-taking, painstaking retreat or wellness program. They just want to relax in a place that can provide them with a lot of wellness. So they can go to classes, have a massage if they like, or they can just lay and read a book. They don't have to do anything. And we're seeing recovery together with biohacking, again, helping to sit with red light or cryotherapy, etc., bringing that together for people, what we call R&R, rest and recreation trips. So we're seeing that is a huge increase of, I don't want to go on a wellness program, I don't want to do detox, I just want to recover and get energy and not have to do anything if I don't want to, but if I want to, I want it at my fingertips. So that is what we're seeing. So we're also seeing other hotel companies ask ourselves, having more free wellness content in their locations, like classes and talks and other things, so that there are those attraction for the R&R, rest and recreation, seeking consumer to go to.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Anna. Beth, is Elaine on? Do you know? Do we know if Elaine is on the call? Anyway, we can check. But Beth, I'd like you to just comment for a minute, because I know when you're beginning the process of putting together a trends report, and it does indeed take a village, but you often talk to Kathy and Anna. There are two people in particular whose brains you like to pick. And I wonder if you could just describe a little bit that process and how you use experts and talk to experts, and how that, how you decide to do that, and what you start to unearth.
I certainly do talk to them because I just, the greatest thing about both of them is I just want to hear, I mean, first of all, Kathy has such a great vantage point on Asia, Anna globally, but also just, these are the intellects of wellness. So you just want to hear people talk. I mean, there's no right trend or wrong trend. Sometimes you choose a trend because it's more important, it has a purpose, it has an impact, it's better than one that's, actually bigger as a consumer, sort of hyper consumer trend. So anyway, two people that I just like to listen to, I could listen forever, for hours.
Yeah. I think we'd all agree. Susie, I'm going to come to you in a moment for the metaverse, but Rena, I just wondered if you could can you give us a little insight into your book and how you put that together?
Yeah, so my book is exploring how wellness became such a phenomenon over the last decade. And it's specifically focusing in on the industry aspect of it. And it's trying to separate what is real wellness from sort of, as I discussed earlier, sort of this hyper-consumerist, elitist trend and why it became that way. And so it does go over legitimate complaints, specifically that dissatisfied women have, that led them to wellness, but also in ways that maybe wellness does help them, but in some ways can also be harming them. So that's what it basically explores, and a ton more other stuff, but it also explores where we can go next and what are the gaps that are inherent within this industry. And there's a lot of input from Global Wellness Institute people. So I don't know, I feel like I should have put Beth's name as a co-author because we're big nerds. This is all we talk about.
Well, it's great. And we can't wait for it to come out, and we'll be sure to be letting everybody know about it. Susie, you took us this year into the metaverse.
And Nancy, excuse me, I just saw that Jesse has let us know that Elaine is on the call.
Okay, terrific. Okay, then thank you for that. We'll come back to you, Susie, in a minute. Elaine, welcome. So sorry that you had trouble getting in, but we are delighted that you're here. Elaine, your trend took us on a journey. I'm not sure anyone could have really imagined quite the way travel has roared back. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your trend, a kind of nutshell on the thesis of it, and then bring us up to date on what you're seeing today. You'll have to unmute. Elaine, are you there? Can you unmute? Okay.
Sorry, there I am. Can you hear me?
Fantastic. We've got you.
I apologize. So many technical problems this morning.
No worries. This is the world we live in now. We're just delighted you're here.
Well, thanks for having me. I wrote about Seeker's Welcome was the name of the wellness travel trend this year. The idea that people were ready to go, and that has been proven. Ready to go and open to new experiences, seeking new experiences, whether it's learning or anything that contributes to wellness, whether it's mental or physical. And what we found indeed that travel is roaring back. You all know this, I'm sure. We're back to 2019, above 2019 levels in terms of travel, at least on the leisure side. And so what was intentional before had to do with hesitation. Intentional now is really about determination. So fulfilling that, people are going on all kinds of trips, big trips especially, but trips, for example, they picked up hobbies during the pandemic, and now they can go vacation with an artist and really perfect those skills. There's a lot of interest in feeding ourselves, learning. Like, people are going to resorts to learn how to beekeep. It's and wellness is everywhere. It's in New York City with a big giant new water focused spa. It's in airports that with biophilic design. So travel is whirring back. And I would say it's every man for themselves in the air. Please wear your mask.
Yes, please wear your mask, and please only take a carry-on bag if you ever want to see your clothes again, right? Is that the...
Yes, exactly. Too many problems.
And so, Elaine, you're seeing wellness as a huge part of travel, more so than before?
Yes, definitely. And it's a very interesting orientation. It's there's just a strong determination. I mean, people are taking time off. I don't know about any of you, but like, I cannot get anyone on the phone on Fridays. People are really taking time. They're recognizing the mental wellness aspect of travel, or just taking time out, resetting, revitalizing. I think the pandemic helped people see that. So that was one positive outcome. And they're really pursuing those passions, whatever the cost. And I mean that almost literally, because I was talking to the American Society of Travel Agents yesterday, and they told me that spending is up 11%. I mean, people are, that's extraordinary, a double-digit increase in money that people are spending on travel. So we know that people are going and they're going big. Amazing.
Yeah, especially at a time when the economy is a little bit uncertain, but clearly people are not postponing the things they want to do. And a lot of that is travel now, which is great, and wellness. Elaine, I'm so glad you're here. Stick with us. Susie, over to you. You took us to the metaverse. Tell us about what you're seeing now. I know that it has been a really interesting ride. And will we all soon be wearing headsets and bumping into walls, or is that just me?
Well, the headsets are still bulky and heavy, so that's a problem. But, the reason we included the metaverse in the trends is because, our wellness world was not known for being really on the ball as much as maybe we should have been in terms of technology 10, 20 years ago. We were a little late, just like hospitality. So we thought, okay, now metaverse, announced, let's welcome it and explore, because it's very new. Most people can't define it, and there's good reason for that. But let's be open and explore. And what I learned, when I was looking at this trend to write it, is that, right now the metaverse, which is being in the digital world, in 3D and so on. And right now, most of it has to do with gaming. And, these are the goggles that, you wear, and they're heavy. However, when you put them on and there's really interesting things happening, you get very engaged with it. And what I learned that I think is important for the wellness world is that, those companies, they need something other than gaming to be involved with. So health and wellness is really something that that is ripe for this. And so there's just a few things that I would say that I've seen since we wrote the trend that is starting to happen. Move to earn, people are being incentivized to move, and that's happening kind of in, virtual reality. There's some travel things happening more, so you can go visit places and see more 3D kinds of things that will expand into you actually being there and traveling. Gamification of fitness, that seems to be getting some legs. The beauty arena is starting to use the metaverse a bit more. And so I would say I'm very happy to see that, there is more exploration from our industry. And I think that continuing that is good. And then one thing I read this morning, and it's new for me, but this conversation with metaverse and really Web3, which is really more of the umbrella. Metaverse is part of it, but it's more known than the Web3 and NFTs and blockchain and all of that kind of thing. But I read for the first time about meta washing. Let's
naturally.
Yes. So there is the issue of, sustainability and what's happening with Web3 and all. But I would just encourage people to read about it, get involved, try these, some young person in your life probably has one, get involved, because there's definitely a trend towards more happening in the metaverse.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you so much. And yes, one way to read all about it is to buy our trends report with the new updated version. So there's a little shameless plug in there, but it really is packed with incredible information. I know Cassandra Kavanaugh is on the call, and Cassandra wrote the trend on urban bathhouses and wellness playgrounds. It actually is the feature in our Trendium that we sent out this morning. And if you don't subscribe to that, there'll be a link in the follow-up. That's an incredible publication. And Cassandra, I'm seeing I can't really watch the chat while I'm doing this, but I have seen some questions in the chat that really relate to socioeconomic status and wellness for all, and how many of these things are accessible to others. Your trend really touches on something that is much less elitist. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that trend and that aspect.
Yeah, well, listening to everybody else, I was just thinking there's so much of what they're saying, that everyone is saying about in terms of how it relates to this trend. Folks are really looking for recovery. They're looking to rest and relax. They're looking for community. Urban bathhouses, the concept, which is really broad because it can be anything from a floating sauna in a bay to a huge development like the new one on Governor's Island that's happening. There's another new bathhouse coming into Brooklyn that's very exciting, 50,000 square foot, membership based. Again, they want to be with like-minded people. They want to have a place to go. And what makes this, exciting is that it gives folks who don't have the ability to go out and spend and go on retreats that might be far away, the access to do it in the city, and to be, in town and actually afford it. So, we're seeing a lot of community yoga classes. We're seeing community beaches being built in places where they weren't before. So it's just an exciting trend that really helped get a lot of folks in a way through the pandemic, in that new models arised. People understood how important evidence-based wellness, this particular traditional effective way to seek wellness, works incredibly well. And you don't have to run yourself ragged to do it. You can have a wonderful time looking at beautiful views, sitting in a sauna, diving into ice cold water. The other thing I'd say that it has finally really hit home is how important contrast therapy is in bathing. So we're seeing much more cold enter the world, this world, especially in the US, where we weren't that aware that in order to get the scientific, the effects, the medical evidence of being doing a hydrothermal circuit, is you actually need hot, and you need hot and you need cold. So there's just access to this way. You can do it at home, jump in an ice bath. There's just
so Cassandra, these are like the wellness playground concept is this broad, very democratic.
Exactly.
Okay. And Susie, might you just jump in just for a moment, and your experience at Terme and the whole idea of these sort of wellness playgrounds and available to all. Can you just comment on that for a minute? Because I think that's really important to this.
Well, I visited in Romania, Terme, Bucharest, And they would not call it a playground because they are very serious about this being a real thermal wellness health experience. But it is fun and it is huge. And they have some unusual and very, very cutting edge technology where they have all these pools and all these, different experiences that people can have. But their water recycles so that it's fresh water every 4 hours. I mean, it's unbelievable. I even went downstairs and into the basement and they showed me. The other thing they have there that I have never seen is they have, a cluster of sauna aufguss or event saunas. Some of you might have heard about the, event sauna, where there's people that, there's a group of people you go in with, and then there's some music, and they make the air a little bit hotter, or they put infusions, and it's an event, or even maybe a little bit of a show. Well, this place had like 7 or 8 of these saunas, and there was a schedule. There's this kind of event here, and this kind of event there, and it was amazing. But
all these things are being now like democratized and available in these for so many more people.
Yes, because this place, takes between, they have 4,000 lockers. So a lot of these places are large, and, people come all day long. So they might have like 10,000 people, but
that's incredible.
It's very affordable. It can be, $20 or even less if you don't stay all that long. So it's really an exciting model.
That is nice to see, because that really does answer the, the need for there to be more that is accessible to more. So thank you for that, Susie. I'm watching the clock. I'm determined to return you all to your day of Zoom calls, which I'm sure you're dying to do, but Jennifer Walsh is on the call and she would tell you to instead go take a walk in nature, and she's absolutely right. But we're going to have a lightning round of predictions now, and I'm going to call on each of our distinguished guests. And when I do, please take just under a minute, literally, to give your top prediction, one wellness trend you think will define 2023. Elaine, I'm going to start with you.
Oh my God, that's tough. And going first, I really think it's going to be all about sustainability in travel, and this idea that we have a responsibility to care for the planet's health as well as our own.
Excellent. So true. Kathy, unmute and let's see your face.
I think 2023 will be devoted to the S and ESG. And it doesn't stand for spa, but it stands for social. And I think that has often been the most neglected, I would say, segment within the whole ESG component. And that definitely touches upon a lot of things within wellness.
Fantastic. Jamie.
Hello. Hi. I think there's going to be much more of a movement towards realness and a real kind of criticism of fakery in terms of imagery. In the UK recently, the Parliamentary Health and Select Committee just published a report on the effects of body image on mental health. And one of the things that called out, one of the actions they want to take, is seeing much more legislation against images that have been doctored online, whether it's used by advertisers or influencers. And you're seeing that in a lot of countries. I think Norway has already passed a law on this. France has got some regulations on this. I think there's going to be hopefully much more call that there shouldn't be these fake images just bombarding us constantly. That
Interesting.
Try and ban them, legislate against them somehow, I think.
Fantastic. That should be a global movement for sure. Anna.
Well, for the crystal ball for the future, I do think my favorite subject of connecting to something bigger than yourself. Some call it spirituality, some call it healing, beauty. We see the psychedelic market is just exploding, but also shamanism, not only because I work with that myself in my spare time, but also that unseen world is so interesting for many, because they feel that what we see in our physical world is not enough. So they want to connect with something bigger, a purpose, their heart. So connection with something more, whatever that is for people, I think we're going to see so much. And that is kind of shown with transformational travel, regenerative travel, bringing in sustainability, love for the earth, love for the soil, etc. So there is something there that I think we're going to see a lot more of in the future, and especially 2023, because people are looking for something more to give them meaning.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Anna. Rena.
I would say gentleness. Like I said, I think there is this rebellion against this productivity mandate that was really associated with the millennial era. So I see, for example, if you go on TikTok or you speak to younger audiences, they're really much more into a walk or a hike. They don't want to do HIIT. They don't want to do these beat yourself up workouts. There's a much more relaxed approach to how we see wellness. And when I say gentleness, I don't mean just like doing meditation or going to a spa. I just mean actually not being as obsessive about it. So that's what I think we're going to see a shift of people just sort of not drinking the Kool-Aid, taking a step back and saying, what do I really need? And how do I not get so, kind of sucked into the cult of productivity or the cult of obsessing over my health?
Fantastic. Cassandra.
I think that similar actually to what everyone is saying, I think there's a lot more local, like micro wellness opportunities that will come up. I think you're going to see a lot more backyard sauna events or destinations that folks can go to, like maybe a Swimply type situation, which is where you rent a swimming pool, but more for saunas and hydrothermal areas, stuff, things like that.
Fantastic. Susie.
I think there's going to be a lot more emphasis and, evaluation of workplace well-being. COVID changed how we work, and this whole issue of people can't find people to work. So how we treat our employees, and it's not just going to be surface like programs or work-life balance. It's going to have to be more than that. Really, really, having people go to work and feel better at the end of their day, even if you're at home, than before. That would be a goal that I would aspire to and think we should start thinking about.
Wonderful. Thank you, Susie. And the last word goes to Beth.
I
What
agree
are
with
you seeing?
I agree with everything anyone said, but one of the things that Anna was talking about, you see a huge rise in wellness clubs, centers, and communities where social connection is really the main event, the main wellness. A lot of the expensive ones are bringing huge menus of health and wellness approaches under one roof, but Remedy Place, you see yesterday, John Mackey of Whole Foods announcing that he's doing a national chain of holistic wellness centers that fitness, spa, Eastern and Western medicine. So, this new kind of wellness model, which is an urban and social, trying to engineer into connection. And then obviously the sort of smorgasbord of experiences that you can't even believe. So it really changes the sort of relationship between the resort and the day model. But I think just, loneliness was the biggest issue and social wellness was the biggest trend going into the pandemic. Wellness places used to be the third place. Now that we're stuck at home, they're the second place. I think human connection, touch, just things that are so primal that we've lost.
Well, speaking of human connection, I'm going to ask everyone to unmute and give you and all of our incredible guests today some of that human connection through applause and global love. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was global warming.
Everyone.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Thank you very much.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Kathy, you can go to sleep now. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you, Nancy, Beth, Anna, Jamie, Rena, Elaine, Susie, everyone who spoke. And we will send out a follow-up email with links to the recording and also a link to the updated trend report. and also some other resources. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.